Oi, all right, how's it going? I'm Grant, you're you. This is the Doodler Review coming through with a new album to give a spin and then chat some fraff about and then assign an arbitrary score to. Today, we're examining the latest from Beth Gibbons. It's called Lives Outgrown. Beth Gibbons is a British singer and songwriter, most known for her work in the highly acclaimed but highly elusive trip hop act Portishead. Gibbons' angelic but fragile vocal stylings became iconic across Portishead's classic three studio album run, providing both an emotional bedrock at the core and a haunting eeriness hovering above the dark, dusty, and electronic grooves of the trio. Despite probably having every opportunity and all the demand in the world to make records, to collaborate, tour, write, and perform, activity from Gibbons, just like her band, is sporadic. Lives Outgrown is her first completely solo record in a career spanning 30 years and only the second ever released to bear her name outside of Portishead, the first being the collaborative project Out of Season with Talk Talk's Paul Webb, released way back in 2002. The lack of recorded output is not due to having any sort of an on again, off again relationship with music, though. Gibbons has more or less always been active since Portishead's 90s heyday, whether through collaborations like the one I just mentioned, or appearing with the Polish National Symphony Orchestra for a performance of Henryk Górecki's Symphony No. 3, featuring on Kendrick Lamar's last record last year, or just touring as Portishead. Selecting the right projects, writing only when inspired, and taking time to really deliver the best work possible. Case in point, this album that has actually been in the works for over a decade. It speaks to not any sort of apathy for music, but rather true integrity. When considered alongside the themes of Lives Outgrown, I'd posit that the scarcity of Gibbons as an artist also has a meta effect on and adds even more power and potency to the record. Like the title of the album itself, the lyrics of Lives Outgrown don't require any reading beyond the lines to uncover their true meaning. This is an album that explores mortality, spirituality, personal growth, family, and the very earth we walk on. This is actually a masterclass on how to paint with words, how to be artistic, and yet definitively outline the theme or concept such that the audience can easily follow you. Floating on a Moment beautifully encapsulates the essence of how fleeting our tiny human lives are, while at the same time emphasizes the gravity of the love that surrounds each of those lives. Gibbons talks about the ache of traversing life with someone who then drifts past the barrier that you can't yet pass through, and the finality that ultimately no one can stay. I feel like this album can very accurately be described as greater than the sum of its parts because those themes are so affecting because of the cumulative effect of the poetry, Gibbons' heavenly voice with which that poetry is communicated, and then the contextual knowledge of knowing that even hearing from this artist is a scarce and precious thing all of its own. Just a little more on the words before moving on, but I just love the beautiful simplicity of love changes, things change, as well as the perfect analogy to describe the things we spend time on as simply trading the sun. It's moving and powerful stuff. Such weighty themes and pure poetry absolutely need to be carried by appropriately rich music, and on that front, the album does not disappoint. Held by Gibbons herself and co-produced with James Ford, who, having started at the intersection of electronica and indie, is more and more becoming the choice du jour for prestige projects, and partly it was co-written as well with Lee Harris of Talk Talk. Lives Outgrown predominantly exists at a meeting point between alternative folk and cinematic chamber pop. It also captures a little of that trip hop spirit and even has an occasional flourish of post-punk and some subtle Eastern flavors. Lost Changes is a fantastic example of the cinematic interpretation of folk with not just horns and strings, but an engulfing river of Gibbons' backup vocals. Reaching Out hits a bit more on the dramatic chamber pop side with accents of horns that could fit comfortably within a classic kind of Bond score. The touch of post-punk I mentioned is almost imperceptible. It's more in the spirit or part of the texture than anything literal. The moment I come back to on this point is Floating on a Moment, and the back and forth segues of Rewind both feel very angular in their arrangement. It's on an acoustic guitar and has no trace of aggression, but there's a blunt, almost dissonant feel to the placement and approach to the notes. Elsewhere, this nod to a far-flung genre is captured in atmospheric tones rather than instruments, waiting in the wings, threatening to subvert the mood, but holding back just from that. There's a drum sound used, a particular technique I fell in love with on the Trent Reznor productions of the 90s, where toms are filtered and gradually panned from left to right. It's a sound used quite persistently here, and I would say probably the only critique I come back to is that that particular drum sound may just tiptoe into being overused, where perhaps a lighter touch on the percussion on certain tracks would provide a fresh dynamic as the album goes on. With that being said, though, really, the record is magnificent and utterly beautiful. I'm going to give this one a 9.5 and knock it on the head. That's just what I think. What are you lot saying? Let me know in the comments, and check out links to descriptions of, links in the description for other reviews you might like. If you could be asked to do all of that, you may as well subscribe, stick around, share some thoughts, show some love, or just tell some abuse in the comments. Other than that, go take care, mate. Mind how you go. Cheers then. Bye.